A very, very misty and foggy start to the morning here in Salford and Greater Manchester. How you doing? It's Sunday morning. It is November 3rd, 2019. My name is Richie Allen. Hope you're having a good weekend. This is Sunday View. I'm going to look inside and outside and around the back of the UK's national newspapers. I've been watching the mid-morning talk shows as well, Sky and the BBC. Some interesting interviews there. I'll take some snippets, or I have taken some snippets from those interviews, and we'll hear those as well. As usual, if you'd like to join in, you can tweet the programme. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. Had a fantastic night last night on Cheetham Hill with the Trigger Warning gang and the Meat Space event. I'll talk about that in a minute or two and tell you all about it. It was very good. Congratulations to all involved who put that on. Welcome to Sunday View. My name is Richie Allen. Let's do it. Loads to chat about today.
Well, bring out the gimp.
It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Yes, I do look forward to hearing from you. Obviously, the newspapers are obsessed with the forthcoming general election, which will take place on December 12th. So there is a lot of election coverage in the papers this morning and around the talk shows as well. Have no fear, fear not. We will look at it, and we'll look at it and examine it, but not for the entire programme. Don't panic. But there you are. We're going to have it for the next 4 weeks or 5 weeks, whatever it is. 6 weeks, is it? 6 weeks, yes, between now and election time. Big shout out to my mate Terence Tez Howell, who drove me to and from the Meat Space event yesterday. But Tez was a very important participant in it. But thanks to him for that, top man, for getting me there and back. It's to him you owe this episode of Sunday View. Good man. So Meat Space then was organised by Hayden Hewitt and Graham Booth, who are the visual side of. They are the faces of triggerwarning.tv, which is... I'm not even going to try to quantify or define what trigger warning is. But the lads present online on YouTube a series of programmes weekly which deal with current events, geopolitics, celebrity stuff, everything that we talk about and don't talk about. The lads cover it in their own inimitable style. Very funny lads, and it's very good. It's been very successful for them, Graham Booth and Hayden Hewitt. So they had an idea last night to do a free speech event in Manchester, which they had space for 30 people, and they sold all 30 tickets. The idea being that people would come along to it, and we would discuss, define, argue about what free speech means, what it is, what it should be, what it must be, what's happening to it, and we would do that in an entertaining way with some entertaining stuff going on around it. And they did a terrific job, really, because it could have all fallen flat. Something like that is very difficult to do. They've done a great job, and it was excellent. I know you can watch it now. If you haven't seen any of it, it's on youtube.com. Just look for Trigger Warning on youtube.com. You'll find the lads, and quite a bit of it was broadcast live on YouTube last night, and then some of it wasn't. And that was, I think that was all. I think, in hindsight, that was a good idea. You know, for people to feel that, yeah, we can say what it is we want. I'm not going to bore you. You understand why free speech is so important now more than ever. And you also understand why, well, you see it every day, how it is being attacked, how people are losing their livelihoods, their status, their reputations even, because of things that they think or that they have said. So it is brilliantly done by Graham and Hayden. I know they want to put on more of them in the future. I want to say hi to some of the people there. Andy, how you doing, Andy? To Big Dave and Claire, to Jason from Telford, to Richard, to David, and to Emily and Paul, who came up from Bournemouth to be part of the event last night. Paul's a northern boy, loves his gravy, because northern boys love gravy. Paul's originally from the northwest, Emily from down south. They came up from Bournemouth. So it was lovely to meet people there last night and have a chat with them. So well done, one and all. Great stuff. I look forward to you putting on another one maybe early on in the new year. From strength to strength, I say. That's what I say anyway. Let's have a look at the papers then. The Observer leads with the headline, Tories act to prevent NHS crisis hitting poll hopes. Yeah, well, what that basically means is around about election time, parties and the incumbents are, well, the government, they make all sorts of promises, don't they? Yes, if we get in, we'll do all these lovely things for the NHS and healthcare, all these lovely things. Vote for us, we'll do these lovely things. And the Observer is saying this morning that the government is going to be, well, it's going to be wooing, that's my word by the way, the public with lovely promises about the NHS. That's the Observer. The Sunday Times leads with double trouble for Boris after Corbyn bounce. The Sunday Times says that Boris Johnson faces a double threat to his hopes of winning a majority. See, that's the thing, winning a majority. Not just being the largest party, because you could win more seats than your nearest rivals, but not have enough to form a majority government. So the Times is saying that Jeremy Corbyn has enjoyed a bounce in the polls in the last 2 or 3 days, but also the Liberal Democrats are going to get into bed with the Greens and with the SNPs and with independents and with others to form a pact of about 60 MPs after it's all added up on December 13th, right? So there's a double threat, says the Sunday Times. I won't dwell on that, it's fairly boring. The Sunday Telegraph, though, leads with a headline which is repugnant, repulsive, and if I was Jeremy Corbyn, I would be complaining to Ipso. I would indeed. The headline is, Jews will leave if Corbyn wins. Now, I don't have any problem if the basis for the Sunday Telegraph article was actual Jewish people telling the Sunday Telegraph, we're a bit nervous about Corbyn winning. Now, I understand that some Jews in the UK have in the past said they are scared of Corbyn winning. People like Alan Sugar. So that is true and that has happened. But that isn't the basis for the story today. Jews will leave if Corbyn wins. Says who? Jews? No, but James Cleverly, the chairman of the Conservative Party, who's in charge of the Tory election campaign. This is wretched, even by the standards of the UK press. This is horrible. This is fucking miserable journalism. James Cleverly says the Jews will leave the UK if Corbyn wins. Well, he would do, wouldn't he? He's running the Conservative Party election campaign. And what did he tell the Telegraph, James Cleverly? Well, he said, well, I have some friends that are Jews and I know some business people that are Jews, and they said they would leave the country if Labour were to win. This is disgusting, disgraceful, reprehensible by the Sunday Telegraph. Say what you think, Richie. That is true. It's disgraceful journalism. Absolutely shocking. Who are these people, Mr. Cleverly? Well, I'd rather not say. Well, we're not going to fucking print then. Who are they? No, it's just nonsense. And you know what I think about anti-Semitism in the UK, so I'm not going to bore you to death with it, because I've told you a million times. Also in the Telegraph, it's like a double whammy. They report that a leading art critic in the UK has been quietly dropped as a Labour parliamentary candidate. So Labour were going to put a guy up to stand, and this guy's name is Matthew Collings, right? He won a BAFTA for a Channel 4 series at one time or another. Matthew Collings was going to stand for Labour, but they've dropped him because he's been accused of anti-Semitism. What did he do? Well, his only sin, it would appear, Matthew Collings, is to say that the allegations of anti-Semitism as a whole around the Labour Party are a witch hunt. They're a witch hunt. Well, that's anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism is everywhere. Well, I think that's a witch hunt. Oh, that's anti-Semitic. Well, what can you say? So he's been dropped, and it's basically front page of the Telegraph, 2 stories about anti-Semitism. He's the art critic for the London Evening Standard, Mr. Collins, though probably not for long. Wait till George Osborne hears that he doesn't believe anti-Semitism is a real problem in the UK. We better sack him. This is the sort of thing we were talking about last night at the Meat Space event run by the Trigger Warning guys. And by the way, there was an incident. There was an incident last night. There was a wonderful exchange last night between Claire and Hayden Hewitt over comments made by Hayden Hewitt about Rachel Corrie, the activist who was killed in Israel, of course, some years ago, and whose parents have been on the Richie Allen radio show. It's a great exchange which kind of crystallised and kind of, I suppose, spoke volumes as to why we were there in the first place. You know, we should be able to say whatever we think and then argue about it without having people banned or sacked or exiled. Hayden and Graham made a video where they were scathing in their condemnation of the coverage of the death of Rachel Corrie. And they said things which would have upset maybe many listeners to this programme. And maybe even me. Right? But they're entitled to say it. It was a wonderful exchange. It kind of highlighted what's going on. So this guy probably won't be the art critic for the London Evening Standard for very longer. Because you can't be going around, you know, saying things about Israel. And you can't be going around saying that anti-Semitism doesn't exist. Particularly if you have a particularly if you have a public profile. If you're in the public eye, just don't say anything about any of these issues. No good can come of it. So Mr. Collins is pissed right off, and he told the Sunday Telegraph, I don't know of any things that I have said that could possibly be anti-Semitic. I would never make anti-Semitic posts. I would only say that I'm very much looking forward to a Corbyn government, which I'm sure will be coming in. And he said, I'm not going to say any more about it. Good man. He made a post on Facebook back in May 2018, and the art critic. And in it he said that Labour MPs who went as part of a delegation to Israel, these would be Labour friends of Israel, he said they should be deselected. Fair play to him, that's his opinion. Doesn't make him anti-Semitic. He said Labour MPs enjoy a free holiday to Israel, paid for by the Israeli government, while the Israeli government massacres children, he said. Both points were absolutely true. Now you might say one doesn't have anything to do with the other, but both were true. Free holiday on the Israeli government, and the Israeli government massacres children. Of course it does. It's a national sport in Israel. That's what, right? Sunday Express. The headline is, Boris, I'll get Brexit all wrapped up. You won't, you blonde-haired goon. You won't, and we know you won't. You lying sack of whatever you are. You said do or die to the death, die in a ditch. We'll be gone by October 31st, and well, here we are. So he's told the Sunday Express that an election victory for the Conservative Party, namely a majority, could lead to Brexit being wrapped up in a few days. Referring to the deal, Johnson told the Express, you could put it in gas mark for 20 minutes and Bob's your uncle. Mother of divine Jesus Christ. Yes, Sophie Ridge interviewed Boris Johnson this morning. She wanted to know, did Sophie Ridge, if Boris Johnson would guarantee that if his deal did get passed through Parliament, the transition period wouldn't be further extended. Good question. What did Johnson say?
Talking about infinite delay, the transition period lasts until the end of December 2020. It's not very long to negotiate a free trade deal.
That's a fair point.
If you look at, for example, the fact that EU-Canada trade deal took 7 years, the EU-Japan deal took 6 years.
Yes, but you know,
if you're Prime Minister, can you rule out extending the transition period?
Well, let me be. I think our viewers will know that unlike the EU-Canada deal or the EU-Korea deal or any other trade deal the EU has done, we start our negotiations in a state. We start our negotiations in a state of perfect alignment. We already have zero tariffs and zero quotas. We already have full regulatory and legislative alignment. So the negotiations in principle should be extremely simple.
So no extension of the transition?
I see no reason whatever why we should extend the transition period. But what you can do,
Do or die?
Do or die, says Sophie Ridge. Not exactly an ironclad guarantee that there won't be any extension of the transition period. Good morning to Jean-Ann Crowley. Good morning, Jean-Ann. It's very wet in Connemara this morning, she says. It might be our kid, but it is one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. Even though my one and only visit to Connemara was when I was in my early teens. Wonderful place. So keep the tweets coming in. The Brexit Party, then, led by Nigel Farage, took out a double-page spread in the Express today, which says, Boris deal is not Brexit, an expensive ad, no doubt. Now, Nigel Farage was on the Andrew Marr show this morning, so he was, on BBC One, and the first question he was asked by Andrew Marr is, are you going to stand yourself, Nigel? This is interesting because, as was pointed out by my friend and colleague Hayden Hewitt last night, Nigel Farage has failed to get elected to Parliament on about 8 different occasions. So are you going to run, Nige? Nige. Are you running, Nige? This is the big question, Nige.
I thought very hard about this. How do I serve the cause of Brexit?
Answer the fucking question.
Yes, because that's what I'm doing this for. Not for a career. I don't want to be in politics for the rest of my life. Do I fight a seat, try and get myself into Parliament, or do I serve the cause better, traversing the length and breadth of the United Kingdom, supporting 600 candidates? And I've decided the latter course is the right one. So
he's not running. Nige is not running. There were all sorts of rumours that he would pull off the biggest political stunt of all time and that he would stand against Boris Johnson in Johnson's Uxbridge constituency, where Johnson only has a small majority, by the way. But no, Nigel realises 8 times. Once, bit unlucky. Twice, well, things might have gone against you. 3 times, well, you can blame your campaign team. 4 times, it was the fucking weather. 5 times, right? 8 times, he's failed. So Nige won't be standing. So you won't, Nige?
So you're not going to stand yourself?
No, very difficult to do both. Very difficult to be in a constituency every day and at the same time be out across the United Kingdom. Because I do want people to know that when they're told this gets Brexit done, it'll all be over by Christmas, I think is what Boris Johnson is saying this morning. They need to understand that actually what's on offer is a close linkage with all the European institutions, a next negotiating phase of at least 3 years. So I'm going out across the country starting tomorrow.
Now, Nigel's going out across the country to all of these constituencies to support his would-be MPs. There was a nice exchange between Farage and Andrew Marr about the claim, Farage's claim, that Johnson's deal isn't Brexit. Marr wanted to dig down into that. And Farage does a very good job, in my opinion, because I've read the withdrawal agreement, the documents, of course I have. Farage does a very good job, particularly towards the end of this 2-minute clip, so pay attention, explaining why it isn't Brexit. Farage with Andrew Marr this morning.
Boris Johnson says this gets us out of the customs union, the single market, it gives back control of the borders, and after the transition period we stop paying in money and we're no longer under control of the European Court. And all of those things, reading the treaty, reading the political declaration, seem to me to be true.
No, not true at all. You clearly haven't read it.
Well, I have read it.
Even well, with respect, let's just drill down, if you want to,
sure,
into some of this. Number one, the European Investment Bank. We will have an ongoing liability after Brexit going on for how many decades, I don't know, of perhaps up to nearly £40 billion if things go wrong. Number two, any future free trade agreement, if we signed it, who would be the arbiter of disputes? Can I tell you? The European Court of Justice, who will make binding rulings. It says it in the document.
If we agree to that in the document, in the transition period, that's true. But after the transition period, and business would say...
The transition period only ends if we sign up to a new agreement. Now, Monsieur Barnier, who, by the way, is brilliant, I wish he'd been working for us, Monsieur Barnier says the next phase of talks will last at least 3 years.
Listen to this now. The next phase of talks will last at least 3 years. Pay attention to what Farage says in the next 30 seconds.
Years. How is this getting Brexit done? And I'll tell you something. But when people say to me in the street, well, look, if Boris just gets Brexit done, isn't that okay? When you tell them the next phase will last at least 3 years, they are horrified.
But the transition period, if you're a business and you want some way of getting from where we are now to where the new world that will be outside the EU,
The new world-
transition, you need a smooth path to
The
that.
new world
Listen now.
will not be actually effectively outside EU rules, because what Barnier brilliantly has written in is that in any future free trade agreement, in everything from financial services to fisheries, we will be tied to the EU rule book, but of course, have no say over how those laws are meant. Now, that is not Brexit. Brexit
Listen
was-
again.
You need a smooth path to
The
that.
new world will not be actually effectively outside EU.
Listen to what Barnier wrote into the withdrawal agreement. Listen to what the basis for a future trade agreement with the European Union would be. This is incredible stuff now. And it's only, I think, this morning that it's dawning on people that what Farage is saying is absolutely true. The withdrawal agreement is just a withdrawal declaration. It's basic. It doesn't provide the framework for a future trading relationship with the European Union. That's all still to be negotiated. But written into the withdrawal agreement that Johnson wants to sell is Michel Barnier's clause, the European Union's clause, that there wouldn't be any free trade agreement with the European Union in the future unless, as part of that agreement, we said, yes, okay, we'll be bound by your laws. Listen again, because it's true, because I've read the thing.
Rules, because what Barnier brilliantly has written in is that in any future free trade agreement, in everything from financial services to fisheries, we will be tied to the EU rule book, but of course, have no say over how those laws are meant. Now, that is not Brexit. Brexit was, apparently, taking back control of our laws, our money and our borders. And very clearly, this proposition does none of those
Doesn't
things.
do it. No, it's worse. It leaves you kind of half in, half out, subject to rules, regulations and all the rest of it, paying money. You will not have control over your immigration. Johnson is lying. And nothing changes then to, it's basically pre-2016, but a lot worse. And that's the truth. And I don't like Nigel Farage or any of them. Hi to Jackie in Oz. How you doing, Jackie? How you doing? Nice to know you're listening. Hi to David Stanford. How you doing, David? John in Salford says Connemara is lovely, but they're all off their heads there in the nicest possible way, says John. How you, John? Hi to Dean Smith in Sheffield. How you doing, Dean in Sheffield? I'm very well, Dean. My lurgy, my throat head cold thing is on the wane. It's in retreat. It's in full retreat, so it is. Good morning to Mark Best. How you doing, Mark Best? Nice to know you're listening to Bo Jaws. How you doing, Big Bo Jaws? Love the names. I love the names. Hi to Paul Powernight. How you doing, Paul? Don't be so bloody Powernight, Paul. Hi to Natalie Stacey. Natalie, I met Natalie last night, and I didn't mention Natalie at the beginning of the programme. I saved a special mention for Natalie. Because it was lovely to meet Natalie last night, because she's been listening to the radio programme since it began. And really smashing person, lovely lady. She was in Manchester. She arrived, I think, late on Friday night. She stayed Friday. She was at the event last night, made some very significant contributions to it. And she's off back down to London today. Natalie, how you doing, Natalie? Lovely to meet you, by the way. Really lovely to meet you. It's nice to meet people that you've been speaking to on social media. That's nice, that, isn't it? Lovely, lovely jubbly. Right, let's move on. Shall we talk? I'll tell you what, we're going to take a tune because I need to lubricate the old vocal cords. So we're going to take a tune. This is Sunday View on richieallen.co.uk. My name is Richie Allen. How you doing? Welcome to the Sunday View show, whatever the bloody hell it is. This is the greatest rock and roll musician of all time, Bob Seger, with You'll Accompany Me. Back in a minute with more news. Brilliant stuff. Bob Seger, You'll Accompany Me on Sunday View, the Richie Allen Show, November 3rd, 2019. If you're lucky in your life, you'll meet somebody like my missus. If you're lucky, you'll meet somebody as a friend, as a lover, as a husband, as a wife. You'll meet somebody like my missus. Bob Seger is very important to me. How do I say it without getting emotional? I'm not going to get emotional. I'm just bloody well not. Bob is retiring. He's finished. He's on a farewell tour, and it's not a farewell tour. It's the farewell tour. He can't do it anymore. And I've never seen him live. And I worship him. You shouldn't worship any man or woman. I know that, but I love the man. Love him. and the future Mrs. Allen. You meet selfless people, don't you? You meet people that they're all about other people. She wanted me to go to New York City last week to watch him in Madison Square Garden. And there's no way we could afford that. I mean, there just isn't. And Caroline said, it doesn't matter. It's a life thing. It's hugely important to you. I'm going to find a way to do it, and I'm going to get you over there. And she was prepared to bankrupt herself, basically, to send me to Madison Square Garden to watch Bob Seger. And I didn't go because I'm sensible. Because in the immortal words of Mick Jagger, you can't always get what you want. Amazing woman. Wanted to do it, and I had to stop her doing it, you know? I had to stop her doing it. You can't do it. But she would have done it. And she would have happily seen me off by myself. And of course, part of it is, of course, I couldn't bear the thoughts of being there and her not to be there with me. What's the bloody point of seeing the musician whom you put on a pedestal higher than anybody else, and the person you love is not there with you? An amazing woman. I want to pay tribute to her. And I want to pay tribute to Bob Seger. And please God, he'll change his mind in 3 years' time. He'll be 77 then. And maybe we will get to see him. Right, after this, more news. You're with Sunday View. Have a listen.
Renowned healer Mark Bayersky travels the world to find the most unique and powerful crystals for self-healing. Since the ancient times, crystals have been used as healing tools. They hold a natural healing vibration and are highly charged in positive energy. Mark teaches how to channel the universal energy and transfer it to the crystal to activate its healing power. Each crystal is used for its unique ability to target a different physical or emotional challenge. Mark Bayersky is an author, healer, speaker, and founder of the Pure Energy Healing Academy. He shares powerful messages of inspiration and healing on his daily YouTube videos, reaching millions worldwide. Mark's crystals, healing oils, and incense sticks are most sought after by other healers. His collection is available online at www.markbayersky.com. His work is presented through Lemon House, a company that creates and curates consciously made gifts.
And I met Andy last night at Meat Space, and Andy went to see Mark in Spain when Mark was in Spain primarily, and met Mark and had a terrific experience with him. So thanks for telling me that last night, Andy. I really appreciate that. Now, I'm going to quickly run through the rest of the front pages. Right. The Mail on Sunday, Charles hit by fake art. Prince Charles thought that he had a Monet painting, but apparently he didn't, the jug-eared goon. Apparently it's a fake, because some bloke has emerged. Some bloke has emerged to say that he painted the painting of an image that is hanging at Dumfries House. A painting, Monet, of course, 19th century French impressionist. Did you have to look that? I did have to look it up, yeah. Of course I was aware of Monet, but I didn't know very much about his particular predilections. I didn't know very much about his particular type of art, because I'm not very cultured, you see. But apparently Charles has a painting, and Charles thinks it's worth 50 million quid. It isn't. Some bloke has emerged and he said, hey, I tell you what, big ears, I painted it, you fucking idiot. Yeah, so there you are. I wonder what he thinks. Yeah. Sunday Mirror, sick pictures of Amelia's dead body posted on Facebook. This is not nice. This is the downside of social media. Well, there are many downsides of social media. Our press has been covering the tragedy of Amelia Bambridge, a young woman who died in Cambodia. I think she drowned. It's been reported extensively in the press here. And some pictures of her dead body have appeared on social media. That is fairly fucking sick, that, you know. Does anybody give any thought to how that would affect people who might come across that? You know, like her parents, her friends. But people don't. We live in the century of the self. Narcissism is on steroids. I'll do whatever I want. I thought you were all for free speech, Richie, and freedom of expression. Yes, but come on. Don't put pictures of some parent's kid on Facebook. Why would you do that? Right? That's in the Sunday Mirror today. On the Star on Sunday, there's a story about trolling. Strictly terrifying is the headline. The Daily Star reports that the bosses of the BBC's entertainment show Strictly Come Dancing are on red alert because a contestant called Mike Bushell, whom I've never heard of, but I'm sure he never heard of me either, he's been sent death threats. His tangos, his waltzes, his charlestons can't be that fucking bad that people are threatening to kill him. I don't know why they're threatening to kill him, but they're threatening to kill him online, so apparently he's being provided with round-the-clock security. Yeah. 27 minutes to 11, to midday, Richie. I went to bed about 3:10, and I got up about 7. So there you are. I'm rocking and rolling. I didn't have very much to drink last night, a couple of glasses of wine. And Tez, who gets a mention fairly often on this programme, too often for his liking, because he's a mover and a shaker, always trying to be under the radar, Tez, He brought along some concoction that he bought from a discount store called Coconut Cove. And of course, Coconut Cove is a knockoff of Malibu. And of course, Coconut Cove has got about 17 times more fucking alcohol in it than Malibu. Cheap and cheerful. Now, Nigel Farage interviewed Donald Trump last week on his radio show. I'll say it again. Nigel Farage interviewed Donald Trump last week on Nigel Farage's radio show.
What kind of fuckery is this?
It's fuckery, and I've whinged on about this for some years, and most of you don't get it and you don't care. And when I whinge on about it, you tweet to me that, what difference does it make? You don't understand it. We're talking about politicians being given radio shows. Wasn't it once the idea, I do remember an idea at one time, that it was our job, the media, not just the national media, but the commercial media, to stand between the people and the politicians on the side of the people, okay, standing between us and them, but firmly on our side, to scrutinise them, to challenge them, to hold them to account, to investigate them. But I think since the advent of social media, and more importantly, identity politics, politicians have become celebrities. And the media, this might be a bit of a stretch for some of you. You might think I'm talking through my sphincter, but I'm going to say it anyway. The media has allowed itself to be embedded in the same way that war correspondents were embedded with the armies of the world. Now, if you've been a long time listener to this programme, you will have heard me lament for many years how the CIA, how the Pentagon, after the Vietnam War, yes, after the Vietnam War, yes, when the US press rigorously and robustly and viciously attacked the government, and not only the government, but attacked the US military for its conduct in Southeast Asia. After that, the Pentagon, the intelligence agency said, we can't put up with this. What can't we put up with, Henry? We can't put up with the people being told the truth about what we're doing in Vietnam ever again. What difference does it make now, Henry? Well, we plan on another 20 or 30 of these wars in the next 40 years. So we can't have the press telling the truth. I've come up with a good idea. Let's bring the journalists along for the ride. Let's embed them. Let's take possession of them. What do you mean by embedding? Well, they will become so chummy with us, so wrapped up in the dangers and the perils of war, and the explosions and the bangs and all of that, that they will begin to write what we want them to write. And that is what happened. And it's happening now with politicians. The same thing. They've been embedded by the media. The media doesn't report robustly, viciously, challenging politicians. No, it celebrates them. It has made celebrities out of them, to the point now that they have fucking radio shows where they interview one another. Where is Ofcom, the regulatory authority that governs broadcast media? Where is it? Where is it? Farage had Trump on the other day. I don't care what you think of Donald Trump. good, bad or indifference. They staged a phone call. This is fucking treason, not by Farage. It's not even treason. This is what you would call the grossest of misconduct by a UK radio station. They pretended that Nigel Farage received a phone call from Donald Trump as he would from any other listener. It was staged. Shocking. What did Farage do? Did he question Donald Trump? No, not at all. No questions on impeachment. No questions on phone calls to Ukraine. No questions about the dozens of lawsuits pending because Donald Trump is a sex offender on an industrial scale. Nothing but a love-in. And that is your media in 2019. Nobody cares. Jacob Rees-Mogg has a programme. They're all getting programmes and podcasts. They are being elevated to celebrity status. And at the same fucking time, the media is going along with calls to punish members of the public when they vent their spleen online against politicians that are betraying them. You couldn't make this up. This is beyond fucking Alice in Wonderland. Madness. And when I complained about this on Friday, oh fucking shut up, Richie, you have a radio show. You didn't listen to a thing I said. He's a politician overseeing a party with 600 candidates that will stand in the election in December. And he has a radio show where he gets to talk completely unfucking challenged. And when he gets to speak to the President of the USA, describe him as a friend and not ask him a question. Trump's interview with Farage was worse than Alex Jones's one. Shocking. Nobody cares. Identity politics, it's crazy. Mad. Anyway, during the love-in, Donald Trump and Farage said that the NHS wouldn't be privatised in any trade deal. They said it's totally untrue, any such suggestion. Yeah. The Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, John McDonnell, was on the Marr Show this morning. It's Jeremy Corbyn's bestie, or used to be bestie. John McDonnell, Labour, would-be Chancellor of the Exchequer, was told Trump and Farage said NHS is off the table. Do you believe them? John McDonnell was asked. Here's what he said.
Well, from what we've seen of the evidence from the dispatches programme of civil servants negotiating with pharmaceutical companies, I think it is true.
Well, let me read you. I mean, we had Nigel Farage on the show a little bit earlier on, and he in turn had Donald Trump on his radio show. And then Donald Trump said about this, not at all. We wouldn't even be involved in that. No, it's not for us to have anything to do with your healthcare system. No, we're just talking about trade.
And you believe Donald Trump? Because I think you'll be one of the few people in this country that actually does.
Well, we have to
Donald Trump has been seen to be, on this particular issue, made a number of contradictory statements. We have to go on the evidence. The evidence of civil servants, on 9 or 11 occasions sitting down, negotiating to sell our NHS.
Well, let's not believe Donald Trump. Let's look at the evidence that we've got elsewhere. Trade deals, by and large, cannot determine the way health services around the world are run. The Americans did a trade deal with Australia. They don't have our NHS, but they have a publicly funded health service, and that was not touched by the trade deal. And in terms of Canada and Singapore negotiating with the EU, again, there are special clauses which ensure that a health service free at the point of need can be aside from these trade deals.
Why are these meetings taking place then? Because the deals that are being negotiated then means our NHS will be hit with high pharmaceutical costs and will be ripped off. It's the first wedge, it's the first foot in the door of selling off our NHS. I do not believe Trump's assurances, and I don't think many people do. There is a risk here, and I believe nobody would want our NHS put in the hands of Donald Trump. It's not even safe in the hands of Boris Johnson.
OK, fair enough, but Andrew Marr then does his job. And he does sometimes do his job, Andrew, to be fair to him. Because he reminds John McDonnell that the NHS is being slowly privatised and that New Labour has a hell of a lot to answer for.
About 7% of our health service at the moment is run by private companies right at the moment, something that New Labour was part of and has carried on for years and years and years. And American companies are also involved, and they're allowed to be involved because of EU regulations giving them the access. So again, I ask, what really is going to be different?
Our argument is that when those contracts run out, we will want to insource this provision because we believe then it's better under democratic control and actually better provided and better integrated into the NHS. And at the same time, you're not then shelling out for shareholders' profits. In that way, we get a better service and actually more cost effective.
Would a future Labour government, if you were elected in this general election, would you get rid of all privatisation inside the NHS?
Yes, our argument is that as
our
arguments that these contracts run out, they should be brought in-house because we believe in a democratic NHS and we believe actually we shouldn't be allowing people to profiteer from the NHS.
So at the end of a Labour government, no commercial involvement in the NHS
We'll see how those contracts run out and we'll protect the patients and we'll get a better service. But I think the general public feel as though we shouldn't be pouring money into the pockets of profiteers.
Yeah, John McDonald, there are massive crowds in Glasgow yesterday. My Scottish listeners, they cane me for not mentioning stuff like this. I do mention it, and I'm mentioning it now. Massive crowds in Glasgow yesterday, not for the footy, not for semi-finals cup, no, but for the Independence Indie Ref 2 march. Thousands, tens of thousands of people heard Nicola Sturgeon call for Scotland's future to be put into Scotland's hands. It's a major rally in Glasgow. She said the time has come to break away from the chaos of Westminster and they want a second independence referendum next year. Jeremy Corbyn has said a new Scottish independence referendum wasn't desirable or necessary. Boris Johnson has said the same. He's gone a bit further. So big crowd there yesterday. And Sturgeon was on Sky this morning. She was asked about Boris Johnson's comments that the matter was settled. The Scottish voted, said Boris Johnson, and they voted for the union, said Boris Johnson. So therefore there is no need for a second referendum. Nicola Sturgeon?
Well, I thought his waffling was quite instructive, actually. I mean, he omitted to recognise the fact that many things have changed since Scotland had an independence referendum in 2014, not least we faced being taken out of the EU against our will. But he said he didn't want another referendum. He said he opposed independence. Actually, that's perfectly legitimate. I don't agree with it, but it's legitimate. But I thought it was interesting that he stopped short of saying that he would seek to block the right of the Scottish people to choose. And when you think about it, maybe that's not surprising because when he does say that, particularly at the start of an election campaign, he sounds as if he's saying to the Scottish people that he doesn't care how we vote. He's going to ignore that vote. Now, the fact of the matter is that's not a sustainable position. It's certainly not a democratic position. Everybody in Scotland knows there's going to be another independence referendum. And if people of Scotland vote SNP, if the SNP win this election, then that sends a clear message that we want to take our future into our own hands rather than have Boris Johnson continue to impose a future upon us.
Yeah. Would she be more optimistic if Jeremy Corbyn was to lead the next government? Would she?
Again, Jeremy Corbyn's position on this, and I'm no great fan of Jeremy Corbyn, has been a lot more democratic and sensible than his party colleagues in Scotland. Again, he's saying he doesn't want a referendum, he doesn't support independence, but he believes it's for the people of Scotland to decide that question, not for Westminster politicians to stand in its way. And that is, of course, the fundamental issue. We can disagree on what the best future for Scotland is. I passionately believe that that is as an independent country, charting our own course, working with others across the UK, Europe and further afield. Others can take a different view, but the people who should decide that question are people here in Scotland.
Yes, and I agree with my learned friend Tommy Sheridan, of course. But to do what then, Nicola Love? To hand the reins to Brussels, which is what she wants to do. Yeah, we want independence from the Union, only to give it to Brussels. I won't dwell on that point. Good morning to Greg Corkish, who's listening in Wicklow. Good morning, Greg. How you doing? It's sunny in Wicklow, says Greg, as opposed to the west. It's sunny on the east coast in Ireland, but not on the west. My accents all sound the same. I don't have a talented bone in my body when it comes to accents. I've heard my friend Jean Ann do various accents, immaculately talented woman there. When I was younger, I was a good mimic. When I was very young, I was a decent mimic. These days, all my accents sound the same. So, good morning, Susan, Ruby Dragon. How you doing, Susan? Love that. I love that Susan has tweeted a picture. Local authorities sending letters to you and demanding that you respond to them at the risk of a fine. Threatening. We'll fine you if you don't respond. I had a funny situation happen the other day. You know me, I'm not a tough talker. I don't talk tough. But I don't suffer fools gladly. Bloke rocks up to the house the other day, knocks on the door. We've only been here five and a half months. Rocks up, knocks on the door. I says, hello? The guy didn't answer me. He handed me a clipboard with a pencil. Pushed it onto my chest. Of course, I didn't take it. My hands were by my side. I'm used to dealing with dickheads, you see. Kept my hands by my side. And I said, what? And he said, it's electoral register polling. You've got to put down on this piece of paper the names of everybody living here. And I said, you've got 10 seconds to walk down that footpath, exit through that gate, close it behind you, and fuck right off. Something about the tone of my voice, something about my height, my attitude, and the glare of my eyes gave him the impression that he had better fuck off. As he walked away, he mumbled something about the police. This is on Thursday last. I'm still waiting for the police. If the guy had said, good morning, mate, how you doing? I'm from such and such a place. I was wondering, would you mind letting us know who's in the house and all that? But no! He thrust, I tells you, a clipboard at my chest. Killed people for less. I haven't, of course. I fantasise. I haven't killed anybody. Good morning to Acker in Dorset. How you doing, Acker? Nice to hear from you this morning. Let's quickly rush through a couple more stories. I'm running out of time here now. I knew I would. There was so much to get into today. Imagine that, the cheek of the little bastard, huh? Pushed the clipboard on me, telling me what to do. Listen, this is my house. Of course it isn't really. It's her indoors. She runs things. But you're not going to get anywhere with me behaving like that. What else have I got for you? Climate change. Labour says one of the ways we can hit our zero net carbon by 2030 is if we insulate every home in the country. And they're pledging £60 billion of energy upgrades to low-income households. You know, loft insulation, double glazing, new heating systems will be made available for every home in the country under a plan by Labour, which is going to cost billions and billions and billions. So Rebecca Long-Bailey is the Salford and Eccles MP who also happens to be the Shadow Business Secretary. Rebecca was on with Sophie Ridge on Sky News this morning and talked about this plan to insulate all the homes in the country. Here's Rebecca.
And it's not just insulating homes, it's also introducing new renewable technologies like heat pumps, solar, that you could heat your hot water with solar panels, for example, and other renewable technologies. And what we'd be doing was offering that opportunity to every single home in the UK. We estimate that it would cut cases of asthma by 500,000 by 2030. It would eliminate fuel poverty by the mid-2020s, and every single household bill would go down. And the interesting part, because ultimately you will be wanting to talk about costs, there is no upfront cost to anybody who wants to take part in this scheme. Those who are on low income salaries or incomes, they will not have to pay a penny. They will receive a grant to be able to carry out this work on their homes. Those who are able to pay, they won't pay any upfront costs. They will have decreasing bills, and a small portion of that decreasing bill will be used in the long term to pay for the work that's been carried out. So nobody will be out of pocket as part of this scheme.
Yeah, and then Rebecca left the studio, she went down to the Enchanted Wood, she walked up the faraway tree and had a game of, well, backgammon with Moonface and Silky. Fantasy fucking politics. Sophie Ridge, please ask Rebecca Long-Bailey, how are you planning to pay for this?
£250 billion. You're going to provide £60 billion of government funds. Now, that's 50% more than the entire defence budget. It's 2/3 the size of the Department for Education's annual budget. I mean, how on earth are you going to find that money?
Yes! Thank you, Sophie. How are you going to find the money? We know, don't we, dear listener? You and I, old chum, we've been around together, you and me, for a long time. We know what they're going to do.
Well, 60 billion will be the direct capital government investment that will come out of our National Transformation Fund.
I'm talking about now.
The remainder of the 250 will be the interest-free loans portion.
I just want to talk about the 60 billion first, because the 60 billion pounds is an awful lot of money, and I'm asking you where you're going to get it from.
So it will come out of our National Transformation Fund, which is the 250 billion pot of capital investment expenditure that John McDonnell set out at the last general election.
So borrowing?
So yes, it would be, but ultimately...
What do you mean, but? There's no buts about it, Rebecca. It means borrowing. We'll come back to that.
Ultimately, what we've factored into all of this, we've done financial modelling that shows that 60 billion will be the government's outlay in the initial stages. But overall, we're looking at generating over 400,000 jobs and supporting businesses throughout the economy. So by 2030, the increased tax take, VAT, corporation tax, national insurance, income tax, more than recoups that £60 billion outlay. In fact, it creates a surplus. The interest-free...
Yeah, I'm just going to stop her there. These plans are being concocted and hatched in La La Land. Now, La La Land is when you take a left on Lollipop Lane. La La Land down there. Billions and billions and billions. Billions and billions. And we'll save the planet by doing it. And Sophie did ask her, how will you pay for it? And the truth is, we'll borrow loads and loads of money. We'll throw the money at quangos and think tanks and NHS trusts, billions. Billions. And energy companies. And for a while, for a little while, it'll all look okay. Because this is not just about insulating homes, this is about the NHS and everything else. And the national debt will rise and rise and rise and rise. But we won't give a toss, because we'll be in power. But then, in 10 years' time, we'll be booted out. Because that's what happens, you see. You get 7 to 10 years. And then the Tories will come in. And the Tories will tell you, we're fucking bankrupt. And then they will give us a little bit more austerity, a little bit of austerity there, and a side helping of privatisation. And if that doesn't happen, my name's not Rebecca Long Bailey, is what she should have said to Sophie Ridge. That's how it works. We'll borrow. And we will keep the UK populace completely in the dark about where that money is generated. And by whom? Will get us up to our tits in debt. And it'll look like things are on the up and up for a short period of time. There will be a little lull in people's misery. But then we'll be voted out. In comes the other mob to tell us there's nothing left in the safe. Nada. Niente. Fuck. We owe so much money, we're going to have to start squeezing. Of course, by that time, cash will have completely disappeared. Completely from your life, my life, and the lives of everybody around us. And we will see then, in the future, and I'm not a fearmonger, that which we saw in Cyprus. Bail-ins. 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 Yes. Hey, Caroline, what, Richie? I'm fucking cooking your breakfast. Good lass. I just had a look at the bank account this morning, love. There's fuck all in it. Yes, we were bailed in. Because we owe so much money, you see, collectively, to that central bank that didn't do anything other than just loan some money into existence and give it to the country. We're being blamed for it now, people. So they're taking money, extracting it from our account, Richie, and there's fuck all we can do about it. We can't go to the bank and say, listen, grab a brown case there and put all my money in there, will you? Because you won't be able to do that. That's where we're going. Bankrupt. And there are lefties who listen to this programme and they tear their hair out and they scream obscenities at their computers, at their phones and their tablets because they think that I'm like them. He must be, Richie. He says he's a socialist. He must be like us. Why doesn't he support these people? Because these people are liars. 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 We'll pay for this, we'll pay for that, we'll do this, we'll get people back into work, we'll build hospitals, we'll do all of that by borrowing trillions. From who? At what cost? Well, in the future, more austerity. That's how, of course, boom to bust works. That's how fractional reserve banking works. That's how every economic crash is infinitely worse than the one that went before it. You see? That's why some great economists who've been on my program over the years, they say the crashes get worse and worse and worse. And at the end of those crashes, at the end of them, people like me, like you, like our friends, like our families, we lose more and more and more and more until there's nothing of us left. That's how it works. Only one or two men and women throughout history have taken on banking and the creation of money, and they came to no good end. So the champions of the people, Rebecca Long Bailey and her friends, will say, oh, we'll make things so much better when we're in charge. It might look okay for a few years. It won't, of course, because so much damage has been done previously. It's not going to look that okay, but it'll be a little bit better. It'll feel a bit better on the poorest in society. That's no bad thing, by the way, but really it's just getting worse. It's all under the radar. We'll be out, they'll be back in. The fiscally conservative party, the party you can trust with the nation's purse strings, and they will say, we're broke, we need to pay back some money. To who? Nobody ever asks. And off we go again. The cycle, I suppose, is ever moving. That cycle doesn't stop, doesn't change. It's pretty tragic, isn't it? I was going to do a story about trans madness, but I'm going to leave it alone for today. I might save it for tomorrow. That was Sunday View, by the way. Thanks for listening to it. Thanks for your comments on Twitter. I really appreciate them. Do check out triggerwarning.tv. Find the Trigger Warning guys on YouTube. Again, congratulations to them for pulling off that very unique event in Manchester last night. And we do hope that they'll do them again in the future, because there is no more pressing concern for us than free speech, our right to express ourselves, to say what we think without being cancelled, without falling foul of some social crediting system, without being exiled or ostracised, right? Without being sacked because we've said that which we believe to be true. Whether it is or not doesn't matter. And they did great last night. That's it for today. I'll be back with you tomorrow at 9 o'clock on... No, I won't be. 9:30 on YouTube for the morning paper review thing. And the Richie Allen Radio Show will be with you tomorrow, Monday at 5 as usual. 5. Yes. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday in the miserable weather. It's dreadful. Leaving you with Oasis. Bye. See you tomorrow.